All right, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Fans Union for the fans by the fans. Uh, got a lot to talk about here. Got full house tonight. Got my three lovely co-hosts with me. What's going on, fellas?
How's it going? How's it going?
What up,
What's
gang?
happening?
Man, it's glad to be here with you, fellas. There's kind of a lot we had happen this weekend yesterday with the polls coming out. Stay tuned for our NFL episode. We're going to get into a lot of trade deadline talk. So a lot going on in football this week. But is this the week? I guess shouldn't say is. This is the week we officially ignore the AP poll for the rest of the season. Um, right. So
I hate
so,
that shit.
I think a lot of people do.
It's damn near like
So
Independence Day after 4th of July. Like, get to
that's a
free
pretty
ourselves from these AP polls.
that's a pretty good way to look at it.
I'll step on that grill this weekend, fellas.
Before we get into it, because we're mainly going to focus it around the playoffs tonight, kind of the outlook. We haven't really gotten to a ton of who we think like maybe a real competitor could be. So we're not going to get into too much of the games this week. And want to kind of look real quick, guys, before we get into that. Anything we want to throw out there about our respective teams, real quick. I know people who watch us. We appreciate all of you. Probably want to hear us talk about whatever it could be. So, but anything we want to touch on real quick. Besides, let me just point it out. As Georgia fans, we had a weekend where we won, and by that win, Florida lost, Tennessee lost, Georgia Tech lost, and Auburn lost. Can't ask for a better weekend. Really can't.
About as good as it gets. No, yeah, I mean, I just in general, like I had talked about in the previous week, like I knew it was going to be a tough game. I know Logan mentioned in the last week that we were going to cover the over/under by ourselves, but I still think that Florida team's legit, man. They got a lot of talent, and that right there was a showcase and a half for anybody that they're going to hire as a head coach to come in and turn that program around. Not to be an asshole, but I'm sick of the crying, man. Like, you guys were not expected to win that game. If we want to turn everything on one play, I could pick 10 on the Georgia side that could have been done differently. So I know that we were just talking about this off air, but I'm going to point this out for all the Crybaby Florida fans out there.
There's a lot of y'all.
Just to put it in perspective, as far as, a comparison of what went right, what went wrong for both teams. Let me just point it out for you. So Georgia had more total yards, more rushing yards, more passing yards, more first downs, better third down percentage, a higher completion rate, longer time of possession, more penalties, and penalty yards. But y'all got cheated. Okay. Yeah, and that new angle that came out that wasn't really shown on the broadcast where it clearly bounced off the ground. Okay. I mean, but at the end of the day, if you're going to cry about one play in a 4-quarter game that you think, like, obviously that would have been a pivotal moment. I'm not going to act like it wasn't. But what did you do for the other 3.5 quarters?
Or
you went for it on fourth down and you didn't get it.
Yes,
so,
you got that's what gets me. You got the ball, fourth and short, and you don't convert it. You don't convert it. Like, it's not to mention DJ Lagway throws an absolute Stevie Wonder ball. You know what I mean?
Respectfully, there was multiple times in that game where I thought it was GG's. I thought Florida had it in the bag. We were going to lose, but somehow, some way, if Georgia finds a way every week. And I'm tired of my blood pressure being as high as it is every Saturday, but somehow they make it happen.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering too, like you said earlier, Trip. I think that's a really good audition for somebody as a head coach. But how soon? I mean, because obviously the portal's going to open, people are going to leave, the coach is gone. So I'm really interested to see kind of how they retain that roster, or because I don't think can you announce anybody until the season's over? I mean, obviously if it's a current hire, you can't. Somebody who currently has a job. But really interested to see that.
I don't think we see an announcement until the season's over, personally.
I agree.
I truly do think, and obviously it's going to depend on who they bring in to fill that spot, that a lot of that core is not going anywhere. And I think that the one person that's going to determine where anybody goes is if DJ Lagway stays, most of those guys are going to stay with him. I think like Dallas Wilson, other guys like that. If he's gone, I think you see a lot of people follow suit, but I think he's going to be the indicator.
Yeah, especially a guy with that kind of talent. So, Graham, you got anything you want to add on this before we let Logan give a Ole Miss tidbit?
Before we let Logan cook up a little bit. No, man. I mean, I ain't gonna throw in too much on top of what you and Trip are gonna touch light on. I guess I will go ahead and mention the fact that Zachariah Branch was my MVP for the week for college across the board, not just within that game. Not a tud out of Mr. Branch, but 10 catches for 112 yards, and that insane catch that he made right before halftime. It was actually on 1st and 10. It was like how Georgia came out and started that drive. He got nailed and jumped too late, but he still came down with the ball, and that was the play that stood out to me the most in that game. But he was lights out, and definitely the answer and the spark that we needed for most parts of the game.
Every
Beyond
big
that,
play, the ball found his hands.
I mean, I was going to ask you, how many times have you seen the ball touch his hands and it didn't turn into a first?
Feels like
Looked it
never.
up myself, and it's like 1 out of every 3 times he touches the ball, it's a first down, and he is probably like our most targeted player. So, kudos to Zach, man. He showed out. Kirby and the coaching staff are seeming to be able to make adjustments a little bit more quickly than they were in the first couple of weeks, and obviously that's always good to see from a team that are late bloomers in a game, always seeming to kind of show up as their best selves in the fourth quarter. I like the fact that they were able to, although it was probably more so because of the targeting penalty on Bolden, it was nice to see the other Branch brother come in and play really good, at least in run defense. He was able to come downhill and step up and give us a change that we needed that Ja'Cory just isn't been able to provide us lately. So shouts to him as well. Beyond that, the dogs keep rolling. Can't be killed, hard to be killed, as Kirby and the coaching staff continue to put it. And I think it's well said, because I definitely don't see another team. I don't favor another team in the nation beyond us in the fourth quarter. If Georgia keeps it manageable and it's within 7, I kind of got them no matter who you're putting them against. But
Hey, I also want to throw out there,
oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Zachariah Branch did have a hell of a game, but CJ Allen would like to have a conversation for MVP. I just looked it up. 13 total tackles, with 7 of those being solo. That man had a day.
Yeah,
he was hawking shit.
He was plugging run fits all day.
No, Trip, that meme I sent in the chat where I was like, him every time he was on spy on 3rd down for DJ, like that was real shit, man. Because boy, CJ really tapped into his like Nakobe Roquan, role in that game. He grew up so much in that game. Not that he hasn't always been our leader, but fair point. Thank you for catching me on that, Trip.
Yeah, it's like we all come to the agreement too. That Florida team with some competency, that talent, could spell a lot of trouble. So we'll see how it goes going forward. Logan, you want to hit on the Rebs before we get into the playoffs?
Yes, I do. I noticed I was muted those first few words, thankfully. So I'm not going to spend too much time solely because we got a lot to get into, but a few things I wanted to point out that I was pretty blown away by. First thing being, we did cover the spread against South Carolina. I know that's something me and Trip were kind of touching on kind of heavy on the last episode. Shout out to Ole Miss for winning a game by more than 1 score. That was great to be able to. Granted, midway through the fourth, it was a little tight, but
6-point game in the fourth.
Yeah, so I mean, we came up with some big plays in the fourth. We handled business. Quan Lacey breaks off a 54-yard rush to kind of seal the deal with under 6 minutes to go, make it 30-14. That was huge. That was so big. And Quan Lacey is exactly what I want to talk about on the offensive side when it comes to this game. We only threw the ball 21 times in this game. Quan Lacey ran it 24 times for 167. Quan Lacey had himself a game. He's had a couple of these. I think he had 142 previously against one of the teams we played. And Quan Lacey, though, is just – he's proven that we kind of have both sides. Because, I mean, we've seen Chambliss scramble, use his feet, be able to run. But it's nice to have a running back to be able to run, and it really helps balance our offense. Because one good thing about Chambliss is he can fit them in some tight windows and whatnot. So it's good that we have the passing game going. And then we have a game like this where it's almost like our passing game just took the night off, and we just kept handing the ball off time after time after time, and there was not much South Carolina could do with it. So, I mean, I know he had the big 54-yarder, but I mean, you take that away, he still ran for what, 113, 120, 123, whatever, 113. So he still ran for 113, which is a good game in itself. You break off a 54-yarder that seals the deal. That obviously just adds to it. So shout out Quan Lacey. I've said it a few times on this show that I think he looks great. I think he's a very, very good back. Him, Quinshon Judkins are the only two running backs I've seen this good since maybe Dexter McCluster in 08-09. And before
Obama
that,
era.
It's probably Deuce in 02. So we've had some good running backs, but this Quan Lacey and Quinshon Judkins has really jumped off the page. Seen a couple people post if we have Quan Lacey last year, we're in the playoffs, no doubt about it. And I hate to be like, I hate that kind of take of like, oh, if we had this player like it's kind of annoying. But at the same time, when I saw that, I was like, honestly, the run game is exactly what we were missing last year. And could be a true statement, but obviously that's far-fetched. But other than that, other than Quan Lacey's crazy game and not having to rely on Chambliss for an SEC game, which I thought was huge, that was very nice. Shout out to the crowd. Lane Kiffin asked them to show up. They showed up. They showed out. They were very, very loud. There's a clip of Lane Kiffin pointing to Sontaire Perkins after catching the game-sealing pick, basically. And he's pointing to him and telling him to go jump in the crowd. So I'm pretty sure we got fined for that. Definitely know we got a 15-yard penalty, but Lane Kiffin just kind of let them all hang out and said, I don't give a damn. Like, this has been a hell of a show. Let's go celebrate with the fans. And kind of does a Lambeau Leap in Oxford, which was kind of cool to see. Love seeing Lane Kiffin say, screw it, go jump in the crowd, go celebrate. This has been a great game, great win, great fans. So that was cool to see. But main thing I want to touch on, and this won't be as long-winded, Ole Miss on the season has 19 sacks. 9 of those have came in the last 2 games against Oklahoma and South Carolina. So half of our sacks are in the last 2 games. Almost 9 out of 19. So pretty much half of our sacks have come in the last 2 games, which I think is insane. We've had back-to-back games where we've been in the backfield damn near all game. They did it against Sellers. They did it against Mateer. And I think the most promising part is in the past, Ole Miss has always struggled against a quarterback that's been able to use his legs. And we seem to have – I don't want this to bite me in the ass when we play DJ Lagaway in 2 weeks. We seem to have been able to contain those thus far this year, which is very, very, very good to see. So it's nice to bounce back like that after Georgia just repeatedly ran the ball down our throats 3 weeks ago. It's nice for us to bounce back and be able to get in the backfield, disrupt the quarterback, and cause a little havoc back there. So 9 sacks in 2 games when you only got 19 all year, I think is huge. On top of that, we've had 14 tackles for loss in the last 2 games, and the rest of the first 7 games we only had 28. So that's 14 of our 42 tackles for losses coming in 2 games, which is also a pretty big number, I thought. So that's for the last 2 weeks combined, those 2 numbers just really jump off the page at me. Like, okay, maybe our defense is kind of pulling it together down the stretch here, which what better time for our defense to kind of get it together. I know Oklahoma hasn't looked as good as they were at the beginning of the year, and South Carolina obviously offensively has been – them and LSU have been the 2 biggest disappointments when it comes to their offensive side of the ball, but that's some – things I wanted to touch on. I thought the sack number was huge for the last 2 weeks compared to the rest of the year. So that's all I really got. Ole Miss is rolling. Love to see the bounce back win against Oklahoma on the road, beating South Carolina, crowd showing out after the tough loss against Georgia. So other than that, that's all I got, unless you guys want to touch on anything you've seen.
You got I'm not going to dive into this whole South Carolina thing, but you got Mike Shula, their offensive coordinator, fired. So thank God.
You're welcome.
South Carolina is I actually wrote a pretty scathing article about the reality of their all. Say what?
I did read it.
Yeah, they have I'm pretty sure they're like they have the 18th most punts in the country this year.
Jeez.
Yeah, they're bottom 5 in yards per game. Just an absolute abysmal offense. But that's not worth giving too much breath on. I think we all know we're here to discuss. Yesterday, college football playoff ranking came out. So like we said, we can officially abandon the AP poll. As I know, one Trips Treatment is happy about. But I think we're all pretty happy about it. So let me get this pulled up. Okay, so just a little introductory. So top 25. I don't think there's a ton of surprise for at least 1 through 5 for sure. But I'll just read it in order from 1 to 10. I got Ohio State. Actually, let me do 1 to. Yeah, let's do 10. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, BYU, Texas Tech, Oregon, and Notre Dame Fighting Irish rounded out the top 10. But it looks a little different when you look at the playoffs, because you would have, I guess, I guess most teams would be in it. But the one kind of caveat there is the highest rank out of non-P4 conference champion would be Memphis, who is actually not in the top 25. So pretty interesting tidbit there. But is one thing I wanted to lead it off by asking y'all how y'all felt about it. Notre Dame is number 10. Miami is number 18, who beat Notre Dame, is so 8 spots below them. Do you guys feel that's justified? Me personally, I do, but I kind of want to hear y'all's take on that.
Kick us off, Graham.
We touching specifically on Notre Dame.
Yeah, we're just those two teams, because that one's come up a lot. Is a lot of fans are like, how is Miami, this far below a team that they beat and that has the same record as?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a certain sense, if we were to consider like current form, and I do think the committee is justified to a certain degree to, use current form in their rankings, but I feel like both of those teams are ranked too high. So I guess I'll leave, most of my, comments for when we touching on, just that whole segment in general. But I guess in a vacuum, I would prefer to see, Miami over Notre Dame, just because they do have that head-to-head win and, matching records. So yeah, I agree. I do think that Miami should be above them, but I think both of them are too high. What you think?
I'll tell you, they've won since they're two. So they started off 0-2. They lost to the highest ranked SEC team in A&M by 1. And then Miami lost to by 3. They've won every game since by at least 2 possessions. So they've improved a lot. But it's kind of an unfortunate thing for Miami, I think, because they've gotten so much worse, and Notre Dame has gotten better. It's kind of like it's obvious, like it's better to lose quick than late, kind of deal. So, just a little bit of my take on it. But one of you other two fellas, just that example specifically.
I'll jump in. The reason why Notre Dame being ranked higher than Miami, I think they should be within a spot from each other at most. I think Notre Dame has better losses. I know that doesn't make sense exactly, but their losses are to Miami and A&M, where Miami has lost a very head scratcher to
SMU.
Who was it? SMU. I was about to say North Carolina State, but that was Georgia Tech. Yes, SMU. That's a head scratcher loss, in my opinion. That's one you gotta come in and put it down on them and kind of show, especially the week before the playoff rankings. Like that's a big moment. You got to come in and seal the deal there. So Beck has another game where he's throwing a couple picks, doesn't look the greatest. But as far as Notre Dame goes, yeah, you can say they got better, but who have they played? Like, I can't stand this Notre Dame shit every year. Neither one of these teams should be in the top 12. Neither one of these teams should be in the playoff picture. That's my personal opinion. I think both of these teams should be hanging around.
That's how I feel, Logan. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah. Barring a conference championship win.
14. What's that?
I said barring a conference championship win.
For Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
No, but Miami.
Fighting Irish, right?
Miami.
Get out of here. I mean, yes, Miami, but I'm talking about Notre. This is why I hate Notre Dame. Join a conference. Quit being scared. Get out of your freaking deal, whatever the hell. I don't know. Figure it out with a conference where you can still have your little TV deal, but also be able to join a conference. You play an ACC heavy schedule, but you don't play no good teams at the ACC 9 times out of 10. Like, I'm just sick of Notre Dame. They're overhyped. They always will be. Funniest comment I've seen about Notre Dame and BYU being the first round matchup was the Catholics versus the Mormons. That was hilarious. I died laughing when I seen that post.
Yeah, that's low hanging fruit.
Notre Dame literally has not played anybody. Like the two teams you played that are worth a damn, you lost to. That is what it is. Like I don't care.
They beat USC. USC 19.
And USC is a fucking joke.
I'm not going that far.
What has USC done in the last 5 years? Nothing. They had Caleb Williams win a Heisman and still couldn't crack playoffs or anything.
Pretty sure they're like the number one offense in the country right now.
I like that USC team, man, with Makai Lemon, Myers. They got some weapons, man.
USC is as overranked as Notre Dame. I think every year USC and Notre Dame are going to be top 20, top 15, top 10.
I like that Washington and USC are in the rankings. I think they would both beat teams like Michigan and Iowa, who are also in the top 25. But,
I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the whole Notre Dame thing. I think Notre Dame and Miami ideally would be mid-teens.
We agree on that. They definitely are
14,
overranked.
15,
they both need to be below 15, in my opinion.
Yeah, so like that's kind of why I have both of those teams hanging out. So I think Miami might need a little more credit, and Notre Dame's getting too much credit, in my opinion. That's honestly how I feel.
Trip?
So I think there's an argument for both sides. And before I jump into the whole Miami versus Notre Dame thing, I think this is one of the first times I've looked at the rankings, and for I would say 80 to 85% of it, I feel like they actually did a pretty solid job. I will give the committee some credit for these rankings. As far as Miami Notre Dame goes, I do think Notre Dame should be ranked above Miami, personally. But I'm with Logan. I think the gap shouldn't be by 8 spots. That's kind of crazy. Now, if we're going to talk about who Notre Dame hasn't beat, or who they beat being nobodies, we got to talk about Miami too. Miami's best win is Notre Dame. That's it. They've played South Florida, Florida State, Louisville got beat, Stanford, SMU got beat. So if we're looking at resumes, which I know they beat Notre Dame has lost their 2 losses by a combined 3 points. Like Joey said, one being the top-rated SEC team who has a case to be a number 1 team in the nation.
4 points.
4
They lost to Miami by 3, A&M by 1.
You're right. So, I don't think Notre Dame is all that in a bag of chips by any means. But if you're comparing, it all depends on how they look at the resume. They could look at a strength of schedule. They could look at the eye test. They could look at record. They could do all kinds of things. But Miami really hasn't done shit either, if we're being completely honest. Like, Notre Dame
Can I say
is
one
Miami.
thing?
Go ahead.
I think y'all are going to call me crazy for this. I think Miami's USF win is as good as Notre Dame's USC win, personally.
I'm not going to agree with you.
Yeah, I can't get you that, big brother.
I just said y'all aren't going to agree with it, but that's how I feel.
I ain't even trying to be that guy, Logan. Have you watched USC play this year?
USC?
Yeah, have you watched them play?
2 times I cut them on. I cut them off because I'm like, this shit sucks.
Oh,
Yeah,
they offense. I mean, I can't speak too much on the defense, but yeah, I mean, Jaden Maeva, Makai Lemon, Jacoby Myers, like, all 3 of those
Makai's
guys,
a bad man.
They are at least an All-American consideration.
I think the reason why I'm saying that is because I think USC is as much of a playoff contender as USF, and I think that's the main reason why I stand on that. Because I don't think either one of them are real playoff contenders at all.
Well, to be fair, they're 7 spots outside the playoff.
Yeah, and I just said I thought they were overranked.
So,
my biggest bone to pick when it comes to any of these teams, which I guess this can transition us into whatever we're going to talk about next with these playoff rankings, is where I am confused and where I do think the committee didn't get things right, which there's always 2 sides to every argument, so I'm not saying mine is correct, but putting BYU and Texas Tech above Oregon. Now, obviously, Oregon, their best win this year, quote unquote, is still kind of Penn State, which is not the best thing on your resume. But BYU and Texas Tech play this week, so that's going to take care of itself. But if the way that I look at it as a fan, and this is why I'm not on a committee, by the way, if we put Oregon and BYU or Oregon and Texas Tech on a neutral field, who's going to be favored in that game? Probably Oregon for both of them, if I had to guess. And I'm not saying it's by a crazy wide margin, but my guess would be at least 7.5 at the minimum against both of those teams. So if that's the case and they would be favored in those games, why are they ranked behind them? So that to me tells me the committee is really, really into records right now, because I think that's the only reason why BYU and Texas Tech are at where they're at now.
I think that's my fault. Go ahead. Finish your point.
I was going to say, but on the other side of that, you have Georgia Tech, who just took their first loss and got plummeted. So with other teams who have taken losses that aren't, I guess they're not as bad as Tech, but there's teams with multiple losses that are above Tech that I kind of disagree with. So this is where we get to the conversation of what does the committee value more than others? Is it the strength of schedule? Is it your record, your resume as a whole? Who knows? I feel like it changes every week, to be completely honest.
My opinion, I think record's got to be the most important part, because that's like the most on paper thing that you have is
Objective, like
yeah,
objective.
that you can't. Well, you can asterisk it if you want. You can do this, that, and the third, but your record is your record. Ultimately, that should be the most important part, in my opinion. A lot of it, unfortunately, is timing, as we all know. But like I'm looking at it right now, I think, and I'm like Georgia Tech. Let's see, they fall far because they're 84 strength of schedule when they lose a game. You know what I mean? And you look at somebody like where's Texas? Looking for Texas Tech. Dang, they might be even lower. But BYU, yeah, they're all pretty low in strength of schedule. But I mean, that also gets into the conversation of like a natural SEC bias. Like, oh, they overrate them. They rank more teams, so teams have more ranked wins, X, Y, and Z, whatever the case may be. But I think you've got to have record be a part of it, and strength of schedule should be right there with it. Like that should be like the next thing, because if you have a higher strength of schedule, like okay, let's just pretend, let's use Tennessee and BYU as an example. Tennessee having 3 losses and having a tougher strength of schedule should not have them ranked higher than a BYU, right? I'm not saying anybody's arguing that, but I'm just using those 2 teams as an example. So I think winning football games has to be the most important part. And Joey Galloway, I was watching the show last night where everybody was talking about, like, it was Booger McFarland, Reese Davis, and Greg McElroy too. And Booger was like, Texas A&M per analytics, per stats should be number 1 over Ohio State. And then Reese Davis says, well, who do you think is better? And Joey Galloway interjects and says, see, this is what we got to decide. If we're going off the eye test, who do I look at and think is better? Then what are we really doing? What are we ranking? It gets way too subjective versus having objective criteria. So I think that's a very a lot of splitting hairs on the committee. I'm glad I do not have that job. But I want it's definitely got to be a balance of the two. But I don't want to do the eye test who would be favored at a neutral field, because I just think at that point you have a preconceived notion versus actually reviewing criteria.
Right. And so like I'm not saying that needs to be the argument to say the rankings is how they go. I'm just saying, like, okay, if we're looking at who has done what with their record, a 7-1 Oregon to me still has a better record. Obviously not a better record because BYU is 8-0. BYU has gone to double overtime with unranked teams. I think they've gone to overtime twice this year with unranked teams. At the end of the day, they're still 8-0. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just saying if we're looking at who they've played and what the outcomes have been in comparison to other teams, that's where I think Oregon should be above those 2. Now, again, these 2 teams play each other this weekend. So Oregon will slide up above one of them as long as Oregon wins as well. So it's all going to handle itself. And a lot of these teams still have to play each other. But like, I also think if we're looking at teams that have the same record, I don't see a reason why A&M isn't in conversation for that 2 or 1 spot. If we're being
I think objectively, they've probably done the most to do so. Like me personally, this is going to be the next thing. I want to know who you guys think is the best team in college football for whatever reason it may be, right, wrong, or indifferent, who you think it is. I personally think Ohio State is the best. And my problem is probably that eye test. Like it's, everything that I'm not on the committee, so I can have that opinion if I want. And, it doesn't affect anything. But I think when you look at them, I think, and I've said this before, Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith are the 2 best players in the sport. Matt Patricia having Caleb Downs on a defense in college should be illegal. They should have sanctioned that. That should not have been real. But they've got a quarterback playing at a super high level, Julian Sand. But you go to the strength of schedule, theirs has not been very impressive. Obviously, they had a Texas win, where Texas is obviously not the team we expected to be, but they've found their way up back to number 11. So that does bolster what they've done a little bit. And it's kind of like they haven't had to flex their muscle to show kind of their full capabilities too much. They've just done what they can to win, and they actually win the game. It's not like Brian Kelly deflecting why LSU can't run the ball because they just won the game. This is a team that's really doing everything the right way and winning games. But if somebody told me that A&M should be number one, I'm not going to bat an eye at it. But to Tripp's question, if they were on a neutral field, who would I pick over Ohio State? I'm not picking anybody.
Go ahead, Logan.
I really don't have much to say about who I think number one is, because I think A&M's more battle tested than the rest of the teams solely because they play in the SEC, which I'm going to be SEC biased. I will always be SEC biased. I think it's the best conference, and I don't think it's a question about it. I do think A&M maybe is more battle tested, but I just don't think Ohio State's played anybody, and that's not necessarily Ohio State's fault. So it's not like we can really blame Ohio State for the fact that the rest of the conference can't keep up, and that's just how I feel about Ohio State. That's nothing against Ohio State. I know I've said on the previous shows, like, who have they played? But at the end of the day, if you really think about it, it's like, that's not their fault. It's not their fault that Penn State falls apart. It's not their fault that Michigan can't maintain the same way Ohio State has. Michigan peaked and kind of fell off a little bit. Ohio State has peaked, and then every year they're in the national championship talk. Like, they are always at the top of the game. So, and then obviously Indiana's looked good. They've got the big win against Oregon. So, kind of with Tripp, though, I do think Oregon should be ahead of Texas Tech and BYU. When he said that, I couldn't have said it better myself. I agree for sure. But I also understand, too, what you're saying, Joey, as far as wins matter. So it's just kind of battling tooth and nail for me who I think the real best team is. I think Ohio State's very good. I think Indiana's very good. I think A&M's very good. And I think if you're really trying to argue that one of those teams are better than the other two, then you're just maybe biased or just feel like arguing, to be honest. I think all three teams are very good.
But who would you, just for the sake of the conversation, ignoring all what is realistic, like if you wanted to be biased, that's okay. Who would you say, I think this is the best team in college football? Who would you pick?
I guess A&M, because I think they're more battle tested. I think they've played better opponents.
Honestly, I think Alabama's the second best team.
Damn, you about to take my.
I almost said Alabama's the best team.
Much, man. Yeah, I need to
go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, no, it's Bama by far to me, and it's because Bama's the only team in the top five that's beaten another top five opponent. I understand that they've lost to Florida State, but Logan hit on being battle tested a lot, and I think Alabama, whoever they end up rolling up on in the later stages of this season, they're going to be able to benefit from the gauntlet of a schedule that they ran through. I also think that, like, Georgia's the only other team within the top five that's got a comparable schedule to them as in terms of, strength. And so, yeah, I can acknowledge everything that Joey hit on as far as their talent, and I agree with him. I think that Ohio State has the depth as well to run the table, but I think Alabama just has that punch factor that they'll be able to kind of give Ohio State something coming out in that first half that they really haven't been able to deal with. And if they're able to just kind of roll with the punches in the second half and lean on a quarterback that's been proficient and been reliable for them all year, Julian Sand has been good. I don't know if I would trust him with the keys nearly as much as I would Ty Simpson when it comes down to, like, being clutch and whatnot. So, yeah, give me Bama for sure.
Hey, you took the words right out of my mouth, Graham. As much as I hate to say it as a Georgia fan,
Hey, that's why we brothers, Trip.
I don't think that I would take really anybody to beat Bama at all. And maybe Ohio State. I could see if they played that Ohio State could beat them. I'm not saying that's impossible, but all around, And if we're talking about being battle tested, having the talent, like clearly Ohio State has a lot of talent. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I'm not saying Julian Sayin is not a good player. I do think he is. I just don't think he's good enough to get the job done all the way through. If you get what I'm saying, I see a lot of highlight plays where these receivers are making these plays for him. That makes him look good and pads a little bit of his stats. Again, he's a hell of a talent. I'm not taking that away from him, but just for Ty Simpson alone, I'm going to say Alabama personally. One stat I did want to point out while we're on the conversation of these top teams, there are only 3 teams in the FBS that have not allowed more than 24 points in a game this year. Number one of those is Ohio State. The second one is Indiana. You guys want to take a guess at who number 3 is that hasn't allowed more than 24 points in a game?
Who would that be?
Auburn.
Really?
And they're 4-5.
Hey, somebody pull up that picture where it's the 3 dragons, but the one at the end looked like a dipshit.
Or like the one where they got where it's the military guys. It's the military guys.
And one clown in the back.
With the clown,
The clown.
yeah. Get your goof ass on, man. But no, but to our point, we be talking about how good this Auburn defense, this Florida defense, there's bad teams in this league. Mississippi State, which I'm sure we'll touch on later. Joe, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but
No, you're good.
there are teams with bad records in this conference that would beat the doors off a lot of these outer conference teams, which I know Logan, hits on a lot when he, touches on his SEC bias. But 85% of that shit is justified. If you sit and watch some of the defenses that these bottom tier fucking SEC teams have, it's actually disgusting. This conference eats itself in from the inside out like every week, bro. Like it's bad, bro.
That's always kind of been an
10
Auburn
years,
thing.
15 years.
Like that's always been an Auburn thing because I don't know if y'all remember the 2019 LSU year when they pretty much steamrolled everybody. The team they did not steamroll was Auburn. They lost like 23-20, or LSU won 23-20, or it was 26-23 maybe, but still.
They took Bryce Young's super team to like 8 overtimes at Jordan Hare that one Saturday as well. Like,
yeah,
and they were bad that year.
I think like Mississippi State, Florida, who's the team you guys just said? Auburn. You put those guys in the ACC and they might run the table. They really might. They might lose to like maybe Louisville, maybe Miami, but other than that, they're probably running the table. Like it's just insane to see these middle of the pack. Like that Auburn stat's insane. Trips in his bag again. That
was deep in the Duffy.
And then also my boy Graham's in the bag with the dragon meme because that is hilarious. But like I really feel like Florida and Mississippi State would be 10-win teams in damn near any other conference. Like I really think that. Like I think Florida's good enough to be a 10-win team in any other conference. And dude, Mississippi, and I'm giving Mississippi State more flowers this year than I ever in a million years would have thought. But Jeff Levy has them boys looking good week in and week out. That he really does. Like,
yeah, I'm worried about that game this weekend. I'm worried about that game this weekend.
Who do they play this weekend?
Georgia plays Mississippi State at Mississippi State.
I thought Georgia played Texas.
That's next weekend.
Next week.
Oh, I'm a weekend
You
ahead.
think come on, you think I'm scheduling a wedding on a game like that? Come on, dog.
I mean, Mississippi State. I'm kidding. I think you're going to smack Mississippi State. But I, as an Ole Miss fan, because the rivalry is so much more different and kind of like the Florida-Georgia,
right.
It doesn't matter who's the most dominant team that year. It's going to be a battle 9 times out of 10. Same with Auburn, Alabama. It's the same with Ole Miss, Mississippi State. A lot of the times it's a battle when one team maybe has more talent or maybe has the more momentum for the year, whatever. But one thing that does scare me is we play Mississippi State. Mississippi State is most likely going to have an opportunity to kick. Actually, Mississippi State is going to have an opportunity to kick us out of the playoffs because if we beat Florida, we're still going to be a 10-win team if we beat State. Like State's either going to give us have an opportunity to give us a second or a third loss. A second loss puts us fringe. A third loss would definitely put us out. So Mississippi State is going to be fired up for that game, and it's at Mississippi State. Cowbells are going to be annoying and ringing. That game does scare me. I'm not going to lie, dude. And Jeff Levy has every reason to want to get his get back. He was at Ole Miss, like he was OC at Ole Miss a few years ago. He did leave us go to Oklahoma willingly, but I don't know. I think Kiffin's got it. But, yeah, Mississippi State, don't mean to ramble on them for 5 minutes, but yeah, they're a much better team than it shows on paper for sure.
Yeah,
One-
teams with that, with you're either really well coached or really well talent, like have a lot of talent. I mean, you're always gonna have a fight when you get in there. So okay, so we all kind of went through who we think our best team is. Tell me, was there anybody who you guys saw on here that kind of jumped off the page like, whoa?
Yes,
Because when I saw
yes.
Virginia at 14 and Louisville at 15, I'm on my Shaq shit. Like, I apologize, was not familiar with your game. That like
You're saying you're surprised Virginia was ranked above Louisville?
it's just weird for me to see Virginia at 14 ranked in a college football playoff. Like,
Okay. I thought you were saying you didn't understand why they were ranked above Louisville.
no. It just surprised me seeing it.
Fair enough.
It kind of surprised me to see Iowa ranked.
Can I touch on your
Tennessee on
your
their LSU, just kind of hanging on by an intricate thread. Go ahead, Logan. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was trying to interrupt you. So I'm just saying this because this is what I've been waiting to touch on. Out of everything on this page, the thing that I disagree with most, the absolute most, Georgia Tech should still be the highest ACC ranked team. And here is why. Georgia Tech's only loss, North Carolina State. Virginia's only loss, North Carolina State. What are we doing? Georgia Tech's best win, number 12 Clemson, who's no longer ranked. Virginia's best win, number 8 Florida State, who's no longer ranked. If we're doing the eye test, you can't tell me you don't look at Georgia Tech and think they're better than Virginia. Like, I get Virginia being one ahead of Louisville. Like, okay, this is a perfect example. Virginia being one ahead of Louisville because they won head-to-head is exactly how I feel like Notre Dame and Miami maybe should be. That's exactly like the same exact feeling about Virginia and Louisville. And Georgia Tech, though, Georgia Tech and Virginia, if you look at them on paper, their only losses are to North Carolina State. They have that in common. Their biggest wins are against two teams who are not ranked anymore. To me, Georgia Tech is the best team in the ACC right now. If you're going off of everything that's happened thus far in the season, maybe I'm just a Haynes King rider. I don't know. I do love Haynes King, and I do love what Tech's got going on. And maybe it's just because Virginia really hasn't had the spotlight. Maybe that has a part to do with it. But the first thing I saw was, how in the world does Georgia Tech lose their first game? And kind of like, I think Tripp said it earlier, and fall that far. Like, that was insane to me, which I know is a completely different poll. So maybe last week in the playoffs, they didn't have them as ranked as high as AP, yada, yada, yada. I get that. It's a whole different poll. But I don't know. To me, I mean, it's splitting hairs, I know, but Georgia Tech, Louisville, Virginia, I just think it should be Tech, Virginia, Louisville in that order.
I think there's some merit to that too, Logan, because what's their heads? Virginia actually has the 85th best strength of schedule, one spot below Georgia Tech.
You're saying
so there could be some merit to what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Because I would say that, I mean, I looked at their schedule. I literally still have it pulled up. None of these teams have really played anybody. Louisville's got the best win out of these three, but Louisville lost to Virginia. But Louisville's got the best win out of these three, with it being Miami. So, like, I don't know. ACC is going to be weird. I think it's going to be whoever wins that conference is in, and that might be the only team you see get in, to be honest. But
for sure,
ACC's just Georgia Tech just falling that bad is definitely just what jumps off the page to me. I mean, honestly, look at Pittsburgh to be a team who could eliminate one of these three teams from the conversation. I want to say Pittsburgh still plays two of these teams. Oh, never mind. I lied. Pittsburgh does play three good teams left. I was thinking it was two. I was thinking it was a couple of those teams, but they play Notre Dame, Tech, and Miami. So, I mean, if Tech beats Pitt, or never mind, Notre Dame's about to beat Pitt. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought Pitt could play spoiler. They still could play spoiler against Tech or Miami, honestly. And maybe against Notre Dame. Maybe Pitt plays spoiler to all of them. Maybe they win out. That'd be sweet. Honestly, especially against Notre Dame. That'd be great.
I think the one that I guess I shouldn't say surprises me the most, but why the hell is Texas at 11?
That's what I was thinking. That's That's my why are they ranked that high?
This is where my conversation goes to going from the committee did a pretty solid job to they look at teams in different fashions. Like you have to look at all these teams exactly the same, right? So if you've got BYU and Texas Tech ranked above Oregon because of record and because they are 8-0 and the people that they have so-called beat, Texas has gone to overtime with unranked Mississippi State and unranked Kentucky. They should have lost to Mississippi State, if we're being honest. I'm not going to sit here and make up a hypothetical loss because they did win the game. You lost to Florida. The two ranked teams that you have played, you've lost to. So, or no, they played Vandy and they won last week. I forgot. Never mind. And they almost screwed that up.
That one looks scary.
They almost screwed that one up. They had a huge lead. Remember, I texted y'all right before the game started. So I feel like Texas is about to drop the hammer on Vandy, and they got up quick. And Vandy found a way to come back and make it a game. But this is where I feel like, especially with teams like Notre Dame too, is there's just too much recency bias in a lot of these. Like I know Texas was just in the playoff last year. Notre Dame was just in the playoff last year. Like I get that, but like we're not. This is a new year, so granted, Texas still has to play Georgia. Who else does Texas play? Arkansas and A&M. So the cards are going to fall regardless. But that blew my mind that they're at 11. I don't get that at all. The last thing I want to say before I pass this over to you, Graham, Josh Pate made a post on Twitter earlier today, and he had talked to a sports book and got some like quote unquote hypothetical spreads for what they would be if the playoffs were what they are now and started today. If Alabama and A&M played in the SEC championship against each other, Alabama would be a 1.5-point favorite. If Georgia played Memphis in the first round, they'd be 20.5-point favorite. If Oregon played at Texas Tech, they would be a 1-point favorite. Ole Miss would be a 16.5-point favorite against Virginia, and Notre Dame would be a 9.5-point favorite at BYU. So last year, the first round of the playoffs was kind of hard to watch. I'm not going to lie. Wasn't really any really good game. I mean, there were some decent games, but there wasn't anything really that's like just jumped off as a good playoff game to me. So I hope that's different this year. But I just thought that was kind of nuts what those hypothetical spreads would be.
The one game I remember last year thinking would be great in the first round and wasn't was Ohio State and Tennessee. I remember thinking like that'd be so good, and boy was I ever so wrong. But I want to touch on your Texas thing because initially I had the same thoughts as you, Trip. But then you sit back and look at it. They lost to Ohio State, who's best team in the country, number one. They lost to Florida. Florida is very questionable. However, they beat at the time was number 6 Oklahoma, which Oklahoma still, I think, what was it, 15? What is Oklahoma right now? 15? 12, sorry. So Oklahoma's 12, even better for Texas. And then you just beat Vandy. I think Texas overall, like I understand it. I think they maybe are a couple spots high, but I do understand. I do think Texas, as of right now, I can see why maybe people are saying they deserve it. Because I mean, you have 2 top 10 wins at the end of it all. If you're looking at the schedules right now, they have 2 top 10 wins.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
The rankings only matter where the team ends up being ranked, not where they were ranked when you played them.
Okay, we've discussed this before, and I'll just say this. For Steve Sarkisian, both of these, if you look at his resume, both of these games count as a top 10 victory. For Texas Longhorns, both of these games count as a top 10 victory. I understand that where teams fall and stuff like that matters. However, they're both still considered top 10 victories for the program. Therefore, they've beaten 2 top 10 teams.
Well, I'm saying like as far as the end of the year pans out, when they go back and look at this, they're not going to say Texas has a top 10 win. I'm not saying – I understand where you're saying the program will mark that as a check mark for Steve Sarkisian has a top 10 win under his belt. But when the committee looks at it at the end of the year, they're looking at where Oklahoma is ranked at the very end of the season. Because then you could say Tech beat number what at the time, 11 Clemson, or 12, who's unranked now. Like that's not going to matter anymore. It's all about how it finishes.
I understand, but in the history of college football, it's a top 10 win. Therefore, I'm going to finish my spiel of Texas has 2 top 10 wins. I get it. I completely understand your side, Trip. But at the end of the day, in the history books, they're top 10 wins. So they have 2 top 10 wins, Oklahoma and Vandy. If you agree more so with – I understand both sides. I'm not saying Trip's wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying that at all. But if you look at the college football history books, they're going to count as top 10 wins. So they have beat at the time number 6 Oklahoma and number 9 Vandy. Both of those teams are still very good, by the way. Even on Tripp's side, both of those teams are still very good.
Yeah.
So I think the thing that just kind of turns us off about Texas is they weren't really the powerhouse everyone was hyping them up to be, which some of that is part of media. And then on top of that, Manning has not looked the best. And then on top of that, their wins are close wins. Like the last 3 weeks, you have an overtime win against Kentucky, overtime win against State, which I don't know how they pulled that one off. And then last week, they only win by 3 and almost let Vandy storm in and get an onside kick at the very end to make it even closer. So I think I agree, Trip. My first thought was like, oh my God, they're high. But then when I look at their schedule and I start thinking about it, I'm like, I guess it makes sense. And then the last thing I fell on was kind of like what you said, Trip. I mean, at the end of the day, they play number 5 Georgia, number 3 A&M. The cards will fall. If they went out, then we're gonna be like, oh yeah, they deserved it. But if they get smoked by Georgia and A&M, which is probably what we all think is more likely to happen, then none of this will really matter. So I think for this week, exactly how everything stands, exactly how the season has played out, I'm not too terribly mad at it, but I do think they're a couple spots high. Yes. Sorry,
Graham, you still there?
I just wanted to jump in on that because my initial thoughts were exactly what you said, Trip, until I kind of like re-looked at everything.
Well, while we're waiting on Graham, I'm gonna drop one more little Easter egg for everybody to think about here.
Go for it.
And this really doesn't have anything to do with the playoff. It does a little bit, but not too much. You know, we've been talking about all this crazy shit that's going on with the coaching carousel, who's on the hot seat. You know, a lot of people are throwing out Dabo's name. You've got Shane Beamer's name. You've got all these people, right? I think there should be one man's name on the hottest of hot seats ever. And depending on how the season plays out, it's going to be Mario Cristobal. I saw.
I know where this is going.
All right. So just so we can recap Mario Cristobal's coaching history at Miami. 2022 first year has the number 13 recruiting class, goes 5-7, misses a bowl game. First year, not going to hold that too much against him. 2023 second year, number 8 recruiting class, 7-6, loses in the Pinstripe Bowl. 2024 number 6 recruiting class, goes 10-3, misses the playoffs, and loses in the Pop-Tart Bowl. So far, 2025, they have the number 13 recruiting class. They're 6-2, and they've also never made an ACC championship and never made the playoff. I think his clock is ticking, boys.
He's on his Billy Nate.
Is that all you had, Trip?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Me and Joey talked about this while watching the NFL games on Sunday. I'm going to throw fuel to the fire here. Mario Cristobal has lost 6 games while being at Miami, being a 10-plus point favorite.
Wow.
That is insane. 6 games in what, 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah.
4. This is the 4th. 6 games in 4 years where you're 10-point favorite and you lose is crazy to me. So that's where I thought you were going
about that last week on the pod. I think I said something about that it was either last week or the week before on the pod about he's tied for the most losses being a certain amount of favorite. I think
it's possible. I seen a post on Instagram about it Saturday night after they lost, and then Sunday, me and Joey were watching the Falcons suck, and I mentioned it to him because that stat blew me away. I'm like, you have not been there long enough for that stat to be thrown out there. Like 6 wins where you're a 10-plus point favorite is insane.
Yeah,
that's some James Franklin shit.
But if you think about it, Cristobal was the same way at Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah,
it's history repeating itself.
So I wanna ask y'all this real quick. So we're looking. Let's pretend this is the playoffs right now. Okay. Is the overwhelming champion now? Like this right here, like this bracket down here. So for those who are watching on YouTube, this top bracket from Ohio State up would be this side's winner, and they would play the winner of whoever the Virginia and below would play. Oh
no, I think Joey froze.
Joey is froze.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're still froze.
Oh, there he is.
Okay,
all right,
there we go.
Hold up. Let me take this down.
Wait, pull that back up because I got something to say on these too. All right, if you freeze again. Oh, did he freeze again?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay, you were just being hella
Just sitting
chill.
really still.
Yeah, I was trying it out.
Okay, go ahead, Joey. Finish your spill. I don't want to jump in.
I was gonna say, I honestly think that bottom bracket might be Ole Miss's to take there. Not gonna lie to you.
Okay. I was kind of feeling biased thinking that, but my first thought was, thank the Lord we're not on that top bracket, because good Lord at the God. I mean, looking at the top bracket, you guarantee you got Georgia versus Alabama, and then you got Oregon versus Ohio State, which is conference games, which is insane. Between those two games, any of those four teams could win, in my opinion, and they could win the semifinals as well. So that is a bloodbath to get the championship.
Yeah.
I would say it ends up being Ole Miss, A&M, Notre Dame, Indiana. Indiana, Notre Dame could go either way. Maybe Indiana has a revenge game since Notre Dame beat them last year. Maybe that's how that plays out. Us versus A&M, I have no idea how that would play out. And then, honestly, Indiana or Notre Dame versus us or A&M, have no idea how that would play out. So, like, these playoffs, I think Ole Miss is definitely in a lighter bracket. Doesn't mean I think that they will run the table. When it comes to playoffs, I have no idea how Lane Kiffin's going to perform. Never been there. So I have absolutely zero thoughts going into it other than just nervous Nancy. But yeah, looking at that bracket, I was like, thank the Lord I'm not in there with Georgia, Oregon, Alabama, and Ohio State, because that top bracket is a gauntlet. Like, that is insane to me.
What team from that is not there come playoff time? It's like an obvious one is Virginia for me personally.
I'm praying Notre Dame. I will always pray on that downfall.
Notre Dame wins out, they're going to be in there.
Oh, 100%. But they have – who was they playing? I think Notre Dame had actually a couple tough games. They play – hold on, pulling it up now. I want to say they had a couple of tough games, though, that were like – not saying they're not winnable games, but they're tough games for Notre Dame.
I think whoever loses BYU, Texas Tech, especially if Texas Tech takes their second. No, Texas Tech has one loss, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, Texas Tech
They
takes their
lost to
second
Arizona
loss.
State, I think.
Yes. See you later, Texas Tech. If that's the case.
BYU's lost or no?
No, they're undefeated.
Okay, yeah.
Correct.
So that could be a battle of the playoffs right there. Notre Dame, they play Pitt, so it's just one game. I was thinking they had two games that were like, I know Pitt's only 24, but Pitt could pull it out. I think Pitt's only lost to they lost to West Virginia, which was a bad win or bad loss, and they lost to Louisville. Louisville's not a bad loss. Louisville's solid. So, but yeah, I think. Let me pull it back up. I'm with Trip on the BYU Texas Tech thing. If you remember, BYU was in the spot last year and fell flat on their face. So we'll see how that plays out. But
I think there's a chance
if
we
Texas
see
Tech
both.
loses, they're out.
I think there's a chance we see both of them not being in there. I think if BYU, like, let's say Texas Tech beats BYU this week, and BYU goes to their title game and loses, they're out. You're not getting in as a 2-loss champion like that, because they don't get an automatic bid. Say it again.
Who would they play in that title game? I don't know. I don't know what the standings is. It
Well, them and Texas Tech
Utah?
are the top of their conference right now. So the next up would be Cincinnati, as of right now. That's who they would play.
wait, where's Utah at these days?
They're sitting at 4th.
So
Oh, that's right, Cincinnati. Yeah, I forgot Cincinnati's first loss was this week. They got blown out by Utah, right?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
but no, one of them would be in because they would be the Big 12 champ, and they're one of the Power 4 schools, so they would get in. Assuming one of those.
I guess what I meant to say is if BYU loses in their title game, they wouldn't get in.
Got you.
I think that is what you said, Trip. I think
Got you.
because when he said that, my thought was like, well, who would they play in the conference championship? That's why I started thinking like that.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah,
I said if their second loss, like if they lose to Texas Tech this weekend and then they lose in the conference championship, they're toast. I don't care if it's only 2 losses; they're not in.
So, all right. Well, I guess Graham had to step away, but yeah, this is first week of the playoff rankings. Obviously, this is going to change. It's not
Can I
gonna
ask
be
one question, Joey?
sure.
Who's one team not in the playoff picture that you think is in? The opposite of your question. What team is out? I want to know what team you think is in. All of you. There's not really one that jumps off the page. I mean,
I think Tech is going to slide in, bro. I really think they are.
and I think they're deserving, honestly.
I think Tech gets in because I think they'll be the ACC champion.
That's what I meant.
That's fair.
I think that even if they lose to Georgia and take their second loss, and they beat Pitt the week before that, and they go in and win their conference, obviously they get an automatic bid. But I think Tech is going to be that team that slides in. I really do. And they're good enough to beat a lot of those teams that we just showed on that bracket.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, at least compete at the very least, which is what we need compared to last year's first round.
Yeah. Graham, before we go, I want you to tell me, because I think that's right where we were about to bring you in at, was when you look at the playoffs 1 through 25, who's a team that you think is ranked too highly and a team that's not ranked high enough?
Yeah, I actually had a quick 3-2 high and a 3-2 low.
Okay, go ahead. Hey, we'll end on that. No pressure.
Yeah. So for my 3-2 high, I had Michigan, Notre Dame, and Miami. We kind of touched on, how I felt about Miami and Notre Dame earlier. I just personally feel like they fit a little bit better in those like 15 through 18 spots, maybe 15 through 19. Simply because I feel like the resumes and body of work of some of the teams that's behind them right now. I'll pull up your graphic here just to maybe give you two of my teams that I would like to see above them. To Logan's point, I think he hit on this a lot. That Tech loss maybe got way overvalued, bumping them down that low. I know they're still, ahead of Miami, but, that's definitely somebody who sticks out to me. And then as far as, Notre Dame being too high, them sitting at 10, obviously I could see a team like Oklahoma, Texas, or even Louisville beating them right now, regardless of whether it was on a neutral field or not. So that's kind of how I feel about that. And then as far as the teams that I felt like were too low, I had Bama, Virginia, and Louisville. I just mentioned there, I feel like Louisville can knock off a few of these guys that are ranked ahead of them. Virginia with only one loss. I believe you guys already hit on that there's some teams with 2 losses that are ranked ahead of them. So, regardless, like you guys mentioned, with some of the matchups that are coming up, a lot of this stuff is, the questions are going to answer themselves. But it is going to be interesting to keep our eyes on some of those teams that are on the bubble moving forward, because most of these teams are only within 1 loss of each other. So a lot of football left to be played for sure.
Well, all right then. We had the I don't even know the word. The savant of the show close us out. That's what we needed. So, all right, guys. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Next week, we'll have a little more game analysis. This is the last college football episode where Trip will be a non-married man. Our brother is getting married this weekend. Congratulations to him.
Big up the Trip.
Looking forward to it, man.
So I thought you said that's unfortunate. I was like, damn.
Nah, don't get me killed.
Say that here.
So in other words, Trip will have a new last name next week, boys.
That's true.
Joke.
Hey,
For those listening and don't know it, it's a joke.
We'll see if when they ask if anybody objects what Joey says. Ball's in his court. That's all I'm gonna say.
Hey, if you see a donkey flying in a window up and down, just ignore it.
Okay.
Just waiting on my moment to run in and object.
Donkey wave. Oh my god. All right. Well, we're gonna get out of here before we get Trip in trouble. So, fellas, it was a pleasure as always. We'll see y'all for the next episode. Peace.
Peace.